Welcome, everybody. Do you want to know how to grow your startup without burning through your advertising budget? One marketing veteran has figured it out, driving 3 successful startup exits over 15 years. Andrew Lee Miller has transformed his expertise into a best-selling book and built Growth Experts, a game-changing agency involving 75% success rates with startup clients reaching 8 to 9-figure valuations. We'll talk all about that in this podcast today. I'm Danielle Hutchinson, your host and Chief Creative Officer at Authors on Mission. Whether you're a startup founder or marketing leader ready to scale your industry, you're in the right place, because today's episode is going to show you how to grow your business without really relying on any types of advertisement. Keep listening to find out more about Andrew's path to becoming Silicon Valley's go-to growth expert. And with that, without further ado, welcome Andrew to our podcast.
Danielle, thank you so much. That was an awesome intro. Wow.
Hey, I like to do my research and make sure that everybody is properly introduced, because our audience here needs to know all about you and know the amazing things you've done. So welcome. It's an honor to meet you.
Thank you so much. Honored to be here. Excited.
Awesome. Well, first things first, the main reason we're here on this podcast today is because you've written a book.
Yep.
So let's start off with that. I know you picked it up right before we start on this call. Let's show our audience the cover's all about. Give it a little spiel.
Yeah. So I wrote a book after about 10 or so years in early stage startups called the Startup Growth Book. And essentially it is kind of a non-boring textbook that teaches you exactly how to grow your startup without a budget. So what that means is, for my career, I worked with a lot of early stage companies that were pre-funding or had raised only a little bit of money. So you have to be really cautious with hiring and with spending too much money on marketing. And then by nature of that trauma, I became really good at growing a company without a lot of money because of, one, a mindset around trying to create as much value as possible for other people. And then two, a very quick execution and a very deep understanding of a lot of different types of marketing. And so the book is really how to do your own PR, how to do your own search marketing, how to do your own social media without having to hire agencies, because a lot of people don't have those opportunities, and that's why a lot of companies fail.
Yeah. I mean, I looked at a little bit of your book. I was able to, kind of cruise through it a little bit. You said 22% of failures come just because they have a marketing failure. So I guess that's just like one reason why your strategies and everything that you talk about, the 50 plus proven ways that you advertise there in the book, it's really impactful stuff. Can you maybe share a little bit about, you've learned a lot of some of your experiences. What are some of the tips that you can share with our audience today? Something, maybe just like a hint. We don't want to give everything away.
Yeah. I mean, every business is totally different, but the bottom line is you have to get some proof that people want what you are putting out there. And what people don't realize is the first iteration is never going to be 100% right. And so we take all this time developing something, a business, a product, a service, a solution, an app, whatever it is, and then you push it out there and it doesn't do exactly what you expect it to do. And then some people kind of give up. And the key is to push it out with as little spend as possible, get some feedback, be open to that feedback, compile it, change your product and your message, and then keep going back and repeating that cycle. And if you're able to get through that very efficiently, then you almost never run out of money and never fail. And so that percentage that you mentioned, it's like 20-something% of startups fail just on that one part. There's other marketing mistakes, like hiring a full-time employee when you've only raised a little bit of money, or way too soon when a marketing channel maybe hasn't proved that it's working. For instance, a lot of companies hire social media people just assuming that there's going to be ROI from that, but there often isn't. And so you want to limp into marketing strategies, test them either yourself or with a low cost way that you can get them tried out. And then as you have data that things are working, that's when you start to scale it up. And I think that is the biggest tip that I can give someone, differentiator. It's not about being cheap, but if you spend too much money and don't get a result, you will go out of business. And so that's the first thing to realize.
Yeah, no, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And, as a ghostwriter, editor, somebody who's in the, more of like the book publishing agency, I definitely see that, reflected back at me with Authors on Mission, because we have a lot of clients who come to us and they have amazing ideas that we want to get out there into a book, right? But if we just put it on paper and put it on a shelf, no one might even want to read it, right? It's about framing it in the way that the audience is going to pick it up. Similar to you need to find a way to take your client's idea and kind of make it something that people want to purchase into. I'm
Yeah.
sure you probably get a lot of people who come to you and they're just maybe have not the best ideas, but I guess, do you ever find yourself in a situation where you're like working with somebody and you kind of have to just rearrange their concept
Yeah.
word?
No, not working with someone. I only work with startups personally that I feel really excited about and that I feel like are creating value and helping people. I'll never touch alcohol or cigarettes or anything that's against my values. We've never done anything with like sports related stuff. It's not that I'm anti-sports. I'm just saying I'm not super passionate about it. So that's the benefit of being the CEO of your own marketing agency, is you can pick and choose who you work with eventually after you have some semblance of success. So we're mostly focused on tech companies, and tech companies usually are founded to solve big problems. And so that's been pretty easy for us to find mission aligned things. But yeah, I mean, people often reach out too early or, before they get enough money. And I have to tell them, like, we don't want to be a major cost center to your business and like put you out of business. You need a certain runway to give us the space to create as marketers for you. So you can't be like check to check and about to go out of business before starting big marketing campaigns. And unfortunately, that is the case with some people that reach out, but that's what happens when you write a book. And that's why I wrote a book. For me, it was to give something of value to anyone. And I get messages from Nigeria, Lebanon, different parts of North Africa and South Africa where people reach out that are like, this book really helped me get my business off the ground. And that's worth more than any of the money. But yeah, there's obviously a lot of people reach out like, I got to work with you. And then you tell them how much, and then there's crickets after that usually. But
yeah, no, I can definitely see that too. Sometimes people don't realize the amount of like hours that go into real quality work, especially when it comes to things like this. So of course I get that surprise too. But when it comes to books, it's always about the return and value, right? Even if it is a little bit pricey, it's something that's going to help you get everything you want started. But
writing
relating
a
back
book?
to you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, of course. Everyone listening right now to our podcast has an idea for a book, or they're in the process of writing their book, but they might not realize the cost of it. However, I mean, when you think about it, if it's done properly and you're investing in it, it's what really gets it on the shelf.
The ROI of a book is really massive, honestly. And I will, plug you for a minute or promote you for a minute for right now, but it totally changed my career. I had a lot of success before writing a book. I just didn't properly promote myself. I was too focused on the work, which is fine. But then the book really helped prove, because it's download of all the things that that there's no one that can question your experience after it's out in the public domain. And so it's been really valuable for me for, one, helping a lot of people, but two, cementing my career, because here's all the things I did to grow these multi-million-dollar businesses. Now it's in a book. And yeah, it's a lot of work, but the ROI is really big. I mean, for me personally, public speaking exploded after obviously increased my rates as a consultant and a coach. And so the ROI is in the 7 figures from writing a book.
Wow, that's incredible. I mean, so before the book came out, like, what's the big difference between 7 figures and now? I mean, I'm sure it's huge.
The big difference was I was only really well known in San Francisco, and then like the book enabled me to help globally, and that was always something I was really passionate about, bridging the gap between Silicon Valley. A lot of things that I think are common sense, a lot of people do know in Silicon Valley, like the aggressiveness, the risk taking, the mindset of just trying to help people rather than making money, and then once you're doing that, trying to go as fast as possible. That's very common here, but not so much. And so even in the rest of America, but definitely abroad. And I've had clients in Europe and in Asia and other places where culturally people are very maybe insecure with being overly aggressive. And we're not in Silicon Valley. And so I was always really passionate about bridging that gap. But the book, made that really easy. Obviously, it's on Amazon around the world, and it's really cool to see sales in Japan and different places that I've never even been. And so that, I think, was and is an exciting part of it. But yeah, it's really like, how many people do you want to help and how much time do you have to do it? The book helps people while you're asleep.
Yeah, I like that you said that it helps people while you're asleep too, right? Even the people that you're not able to take on in your industry. I mean, that was one thing that really stuck out to me that you were talking about before, is like, not a lot of people get to just pick and choose who they work with. Sometimes someone comes to you and you just have to take them on, right? But now that you have a book, you do have something to give everybody. I love how you mentioned that, like you can give it to whoever you want. It continues to spread your word, and when those people do like actually get established, they're more inclined to come back, right? It's
Mhm.
kind of like handing out business cards, but in the form
Uh,
of a book, right?
yeah, that's a good thing to mention. Like for me, I think I should have, and I will write another book. It's an intensive thing. It takes some time, especially if you really care about what you're putting out. But I wrote a book more to help people. It does not have a huge upsell for me besides like the public speaking and, like as much, because again, that's a good piece of advice for anybody writing a book. Like, I think that's probably one of the things you help people with at Authors on a Mission, rather than doing it like on your own, is you want to have a plan of how that content is going to bring people into your world. And for me, it's mostly I work with venture capitalists and startups that raise millions of dollars. It's a small subset of the total people that the book can help. And it did increase my authority, which helped with what I do, but I definitely don't get a lot of people that go from reading the book to spending, tons of money with my marketing agency, just to be clear and honest.
Okay, no, you know what? I like that though, because you did mention earlier that a lot of people don't quite see the value in just doing it to help other
Yeah,
people,
right,
or
yeah,
at least like it's not like in the forefront of their minds.
right.
So, that's something really genuine about it. And to a lot of our listeners right now, that's just another whole aspect of it too, that,
Hmm.
I mean, at the end of the day, a book is about having your name on it, getting your credibility out there, your authority. But
Absolutely.
I do see it from your side, leaving your mark also, like spreading your word in a way
Totally.
that can help others, even if it's just a small tip they can get from that book.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
got an email with photos maybe like a year ago from a mom who has an 11-year-old entrepreneur son. And she was like, my son somehow got your book like at the library and like invented this product and now it's selling. And it was like, you have
oh.
no idea how many people you're helping. So that is worth more than money. But I think that if I was to give advice to anybody writing a book, you want to make sure that one, you're helping people, but there is a direct connection to continuing working with you in some capacity after the book, because I just gave away everything in the book and they don't need to message me. They can just go get traction for their business and raise money. And then their goal is, if they raise money, they go, hey, that Andrew guy, let's call him up. He obviously could help us now that we can afford him or something. And yeah, so that's the process.
So would you say when you write your next book, you would kind of keep some secrets to yourself? Is that what you're saying?
Oh man, I don't know if I want this on recording. No, I don't. Not
Oh,
that. I think that. No, I was joking. No, I think that the next book I will have low ticket solutions, meaning I charge a minimum of $5,000 a month to work with me fractionally as a marketer now, after driving multi-$100 million exit, several companies at 50 mil ARR. These are startup terms. $50 million a year in annual recurring revenue is a big place to be. And so a lot of people can't afford that. And so in the future, I would have, more of a community and more of, like things that people can do or purchase or work with you for in the hundreds, not the thousands. I think that's a key thing to do. I do one-off 1 hour consultations, but I just don't have enough time to do them for all the people that want it. So I have to raise the rate quite a bit. And so for me and what I do, it's a bit too niche, and I would fix that for the next book. Like maybe, I thought about writing a book about small business marketing and like the nuances. It's very similar, but with a much wider total addressable market. So that could be the second book. Or I worked at Tinder. So a lot of people don't know that consider myself an online dating expert, and have seen a lot of data and done marketing in the space and worked in it for a long time and used it as an end user for a long time, like a long time. And thought about writing a book about that, connecting marketing to online dating and what I learned about that working at Tinder, and how, you're marketing yourself.
Yeah, I was
It
about
is
to say that
marketing.
you're pretty much making your profile to market yourself
Yeah.
as like a significant other.
And people don't realize
Yeah.
the same thing as we're talking about with founders launching their business. You don't realize how much marketing it actually takes. It's the same thing with, we all have those friends that are like, oh, online dating didn't work for me. How many dates did you go on? How many conversations did you have? Because it's the same thing with marketing your business or trying to raise fundraising or trying to find authors who want to write their book. You have to talk to a lot to find a little that are really serious. And so, yeah, that's what my book would be about. It's about hacking the online dating funnel. People don't realize out of marketing that there's a funnel for everything. At the top of the funnel is all the people you ever talk to. At the bottom is the person that you spend your life with. But there's steps along the way. And in marketing or sales, that's obvious. But applying that to online dating could be the next book idea.
When it comes to writing books, it's always important to have something that no one else has put out there. And I don't think I've ever talked to another author that said, yeah, I'm going to write a book about marketing myself as a boyfriend. You know what I mean? Like, I like that.
Well, it worked for me. It worked for me. I'm married. So, like my
there you go. You have proven results.
And I always say you should never listen to a dating expert that's single, because then they can't even, you know what I mean? So, but no, like I appreciate that. That's good feedback. Yeah, it's a really unique pitch. I mean, everything in marketing is about data and results. So if you think about that for dating also, then it's often the second most important thing. So your money and your business, and then there's like, who are you spending the rest of your life with? So I think that it's an important thing. It can help a lot of people. But back to your last question, if I write that book, I have to then do like an online course and like retreats and all this stuff that I don't know if I'm really ready to do, especially as an unlicensed relationship expert. I would have to do that if I wanted to get into that. But the book I can write because it's not about anything other than my experience and data that I have personally. So yeah, anyway, that's where I'm at with that. It's the first time I ever talked about that, so I don't know.
Oh, it's an honor. So a couple points I want to keep fresh in my mind about that. So the first thing, just going back to the content of that book, one I mentioned before, it's definitely a topic that I haven't heard of before. It's very unique. Like a lot of people these days are writing books and they have amazing concepts and business theories, but at the end of the day, it's, generally under the same umbrella, but that's definitely out of the ballpark. So that's really cool. But the other thing is, it's also interesting because it would be a good way for you to make these kind of concepts relatable to like more people, you know what I mean? Because, as somebody who understands marketing to an extent, right, but not in, the big scheme of things. So a lot of people would understand it more and be more apt to like pick it up and read it if they know it's also about, the dating world. I just feel like that's true. It broadens your audience a little bit. And, you're talking about how you're so niche, right? It'll give you a little bit.
That is a really good point. Yeah, I mean, everybody, like I was at a venture capitalist event full of very wealthy people last night. And I was talking to a lady in her early 50s about potentially working with my wife on a project. But then somehow it got onto the fact that she was single. And I said, do you date older men that are as successful as you? And she was like, no, I always date younger, broke guys. And I was like, there you go. That's, like you got to think about, imagine yourself as a super successful dude, and she was like, oh, I never thought about it. Anyway, my point is, I think dating is super applicable, and it's interesting that it affects literally everyone, yet it's not a huge industry. The whole online dating industry is only $2 billion, which sounds like a ton of money, but compared to travel industry is like $1 trillion or something crazy. Right. It's quite small for the same size market. Like the same amount of people travel as date, or it's everyone. And so, yeah, it's really interesting. And that's one of the things I think will be a big gold rush in the next 10 years is because dating apps aren't really working anymore. And so not to hijack the conversation into that, but it is a really interesting
we can go any direction you want. I'm very interested in this too. Why are they not working anymore? Are they
now I feel, dating apps are not working because I think culturally we're having a shift away from the quantity over quality feel. And people are also realizing that every app is an addiction, no matter what dopamine it gives you. And so there is a general distrust of just being like this on your phone all day anymore. Like it's good. We're getting educated as consumers. Yeah. We're hopefully moving that way. At least that's what I'm seeing. So it's people want deeper connections, not just like the surface level. But that's why I think the book is so powerful, because the idea is that you have to move it yourself down the funnel. And if you see red flags, which that was a great meme social media thing that happened, when you see red flags, you push those people out of your funnel. You don't continue stuck in one part of the funnel. And when people think about that way, then you grow your business. If you think about your clients and prospects, like it's the same for authors on a mission. You can't talk to 10,000 authors at once. If none of them move forwards, then you don't ever have a business. So you have to focus on the people that are serious and that are moving forwards and that are actually committed. So you're only able to talk so long with a prospect. It's the same thing for the dating thing, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's again a great book and a great thing that we could, talk more about perhaps and,
Yeah.
about, but yeah, I mean, one thing I also want to go back to is like you're kind of dabbling with how to like what to do once you get that book out there, right? Because you don't even have time to like, run a seminar, a workshop or anything. I'm curious, did you ever consider like, or if you already have, just sort of like, a forum online, like a Facebook group or something, just giving people a place to just like jump on and chat back and forth. I feel like that might be a good method for if you don't have time, at least, you're setting people up with resources. I don't know.
Yeah, I did. So for my last book, I had a bunch of online courses that were for sale for a while after the book was released. Now I only give them to coaching clients so they were available for, I don't know, 99 bucks after buying the book. You could watch the course material. And a lot of the stuff is actually free now on Udemy and other platforms, so I can just help as many people as possible. I did start a Facebook community. I did do virtual events. I did do retreats also for people that read the book. You could come on a retreat with me and like one other sales and one other wellness expert, and we'd have a fun like 5 days together in Mexico, Morocco, different places, Thailand. But yeah, I think that, let's see, how do I want to say that right? I think that I didn't do enough, like the time investment is real and you really do, and I think the targeting wasn't ideal for me because what I do costs a lot, that it's not the large market.
More about quality.
It's not that people weren't quality. I want to help everyone.
Well, yeah, I didn't mean it like that, but like,
Yeah. But that's the hard part for me is I want to help people, but I also need to eat food and have money, you know what I mean? And so there's the caveat there with startups is that 90-something% do fail. And a lot of people are way off with the ideas, as you mentioned earlier, and they're not really ready yet to invest. And so that community got to like a couple hundred, but not that many people were really active because again, startup founders are like hustling and building and not going to be on social media. So it's a unique market in that case, but I think in the future, like the dating thing would be a massive thing to have a community for because people want to run strategies or ideas by themselves and talk about their heartbreak with each other or whatever it is. And so I think that's definitely important for authors for sure.
Yeah, it would definitely be a fun like mix of topics going on too. Like, you just said like talking about your heartbreaks, but also just like talking about, other strategies and developing whatever they're working on too. But yeah, I mean, so why don't we shift back to sort of like your book and, the writing process for all that.
Sure.
So let's see. I know that in your book, you really focus on what you call the fake it to make it mindset, right? So perhaps you can give us a little bit about that. What does that have to do with authentic marketing? And, how would that maybe relate to some things that our listeners here are looking to hear in their own lives?
That's a great question. Yeah. So you should never lie ever in any of your marketing ever, because like, lying is bad, but especially if it's public facing, you're going to really screw yourself. So there's no one ever saying that. But in early stage tech, you have to believe it even before it happens as a founder, or you cannot rally the troops, you cannot close early customers, you cannot get the media to be excited about what you're doing. So I often coach founders to fake it till you make it does not mean fudge your numbers. That's way over the borderline. What I mean is actually, if you just had a couple calls with some really big logos, like we're already chatting with really big customers, like that's not saying the exact situations. We just had a couple calls, but we're starting to get momentum. You're faking it a little till you make it a little bit further because you're expecting that you are going to get those other calls with those companies. So you're just using it to get some momentum. Like, hey, we're already talking with Netflix. Maybe you only talked on email with Netflix. You haven't had a meeting, but you say it to HBO because you're trying to convince them to meet with you. That's what I mean by fake it till I make it. So I think, you always want to be authentic. You got to be really passionate. Oh no, that was a previous call. You have to be really passionate about what you're working on. Also, as a writer, as an author, as a marketer, as a CEO, if your passion is there, it comes through, and it makes it almost like a secret hack for marketing is to really actually believe what you're saying and know that you're really trying to help people. So yeah, but if you are just starting out, you can't be defeated by that. You've got to be able to fake it till you make it and know that you're going to get there. And I always say, use the metric of 6 months. Talk about your company like you're 6 months ahead of where you are right now. That's what I mean.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say, like, it's a very fine line between just like a flat out lie and just like a little bit of exaggerating that can't harm anything. And I like that you said 6 months because I feel like that's a good determining factor. Like, it's not like a year from now, and it's not like too soon that it's never gonna happen within that time frame. I feel like that's a definitely a good way to gauge yourself when you're trying to, balance between the fake it till you make it mindset.
Absolutely.
Yep. That's funny. It's a new take on the phrase for sure, because I also like, I obviously picture it very literally, right? Like you're faking it and flat out lying, but you're thinking like, okay,
No.
what's realistic? What can you actually achieve? Let's take what I've done and just like, I'd say like fluff it up a little bit. Like
No. I don't say fluff it up. No.
No, fluff it up.
No, because don't fluff any of them. Like that's
why it's a fine line.
That's like,
you don't want to go too
no,
overboard.
it's not even really a fine line. It's a bottom line is never fluff anything up, never lie, never make anything up, but project into like talk about things that are happening as if they've happened, but like because that's a manifestation, that's what's going to make them happen. I mean, I'll give real examples again, like when we're starting a sales process, it can take a long time in B2B SaaS, software as a service, to close clients, and you have to talk about what you're doing now as to get other people to close, and it might not. So we're starting working with Netflix, and you're waiting for Netflix still to sign. So yeah, it's just an example, and I keep picking on Netflix just because it came out of a real situation, but idea there is like you're really close to winning, but so you're faking it till you make it, but you're getting there. So you're not saying, oh, we made $2 million this year when you only made $20. That's lying, so, and I wouldn't fluff 20 even to 10,000 or no fluffing. That's
no fluffing.
Okay,
Don't fluff those numbers.
No, it's faking it till you make it to increase morale. Like as a CEO and a founder, it's faking it till you make it to convince early stage customers to believe in the thing that you're building. It's faking it till you make it, like for instance, like maybe a lot of the employees are part-time and you're telling, investors, or not investors, you're telling the media that we've got 20 people on our team, like that's faking it till you make it, like making the team seem larger than they are because you need the benefit of that for some reason.
Yeah, no, okay. So I'm glad you clarified that a bit because, at first, I definitely got a different perspective on it. But
I hope people aren't out there just lying and say, "Hey, I read this book from this bald dude that said I can lie." That's definitely not the case.
I think you definitely explained it very well. Yeah, I mean, to all of our listeners right now, I mean, you can apply these same kinds of things in your life too, though. I mean. Maybe you're just starting on something and you're about to finally make that next milestone, praise yourself for that. You got there. And, when you're talking to other people, but that's sort of like another way to phrase it. Like, I'm here now. That's how you can continue to market yourself to other people. So
absolutely. Yeah, totally.
So, I mean, kind of branching off from there, can you tell us a little bit about, what was the actual writing process like when you were doing your book? You were doing it all by yourself? Did you have a little bit of help?
No
challenges?
Yeah, I worked with a company like Authors on a Mission, which I won't name. But they were really supportive. Really, like for me, I think that again, promoting Authors on a Mission here, you can do it yourself and fail and learn and fail and learn, or you can spend some time to accelerate that learning curve. And that's what I did with a similar company that's no longer in the space. And they it's a really hard world to navigate if you've never done anything. And so my expertise was on writing what I knew. And so I focused on that and gave everything else up to somebody else. And I learned a lot. And so I think for the next book after that, I'll probably still work with the company, but I can do a lot more now and understand that there's a lot less unknowns. But the process for me was I actually got COVID. I got COVID and I had to sit my butt still. I didn't have any symptoms. I just couldn't go anywhere for 2 weeks. This is like 2021 and so Everyone was scared of COVID back then. So you really wanted to wait the full 2 weeks. You got to sit in quarantine and not kill anyone. So I was locked up, and I'm not a Netflix person. I'm a very health focused person. So I was like, I'm gonna put on techno music and just start typing. And so I wrote, maybe 250, 300 pages in 2 weeks. And then I used this team and we got it edited down. And then I gave the book to some founders who read it and then gave me feedback. And then, I probably need to make a run through and edit it again now, now that there's been an AI explosion in marketing. You can even do more than when I first wrote it. But all the strategies still remain true because I get great feedback even on a daily basis. But yeah, so it took me 2 weeks to write it, and then maybe another 2 weeks to whittle it down. And then the process with design and getting it approved by Amazon and KDP and everything, I can't remember, but it was probably another month, and then we were rocking and rolling. And when you launch a book, it's a lot of marketing initiative, right? So I had 500 pre-sales, and that really helped, maybe more, maybe 300, no, I can't remember. So, anyway, it was, that really helped confidence and the momentum and get to a good result. And so from there, I did do some Amazon ads as well, which I would definitely recommend. And, I'm sure you agree that the biggest thing beyond that is a community. So, I had maybe 20, 30,000 total social media followers. And, that helps move some books as well, I think. And so, yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, so many points to draw on from there. I guess I'd first like to start with kind of going back to the COVID thing, just because, I like to mention this to a lot of people too. There's two different kinds of ways you could handle that kind of situation. You could have sat down, watched TV, relaxed, but you actually got out there, you put on that techno music, you got writing. And I mean, it was a total of, you said 2 weeks to write the whole thing.
2 weeks, and it was 8 hours a day for 14 hours, for 14 days. I think, because I could easily take time off of work. I own my own marketing agency, and so I was like, hey, I'm gonna focus for these 2 weeks on this. And so probably I would wake up 1 hour of work on the company, and then 8 hours of writing, and then 1 hour of work on answering emails in the company. And then, but again, locked in a room, not a bunch of social, there was no distractions for that 2 weeks. So it was an abnormal 2 weeks. I couldn't even go down to the gym. So I had a lot of time on the computer, but I normally do 60-hour weeks at the computer anyway. And so it wasn't that crazy, but yeah. And, I had, a lot of, there's a lot of content up here. I had notes from a year or two of coaching sessions. So I knew exactly what I wanted to talk about and what was going to be most impactful for people. And so I just had an outline, and then I just went in stream of consciousness for a few hours at a time. And I think you can definitely do it that way. Or, AI is a powerful thing. I don't know if you talk about AI, but for writing abilities, you definitely don't want to ever put anything out that comes directly out of AI, but it can really help with outlines. And I think that's where a lot of writers' block comes from. And so once you have an outline, you just fill it with content, do a lot of research, fill it with some statistics that you can cite, keep writing about and then, for me also, there's maybe 100 marketing tools that I recommend in there that are still not super well known to this date. And I think that also is, a good thing to, you just start piecing in these pieces inside of the outline. I had a CEO once tell me I was struggling to write a white paper before I wrote the book. I guess this was the longest thing I ever wrote, maybe 20 pages, white paper on the travel industry. And I was stuck for a week, and he was like, just grab a bunch of stuff and ideas that are really interesting to you and put them there, but just make sure you never publish anything that is written by anybody else. Obviously, that's plagiarism. But it's, this idea, and then you extrapolate and you expand and you edit and you rewrite and you write and you cite and you end up getting there. And so that was kind of the process for me.
Well, you definitely described something that could be a horror situation for some people, but the perfect dream setup for anybody wanting to write, you know what I mean? Talk about having it made, being able to just be I'm gonna take 8 hours and focus on my passion project. Like, oh my
Right.
gosh. I mean, you kind of had, I'm gonna say, like, I would love to sit down and write my own book. Sometimes it's hard to because,
Yeah.
as somebody always helping other people, you don't always have the time to.
True.
But I also know what it's like when you finally get into that groove because, I'll be angel writing for somebody. We call it angel writing here at
Yeah.
Authors on Mission,
Instead of
actually.
ghostwriting.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
That's cool.
But yeah, so like, I know what it's like to get into the groove, like you have your cup of coffee and before you know it, like, 4 to 5 hours have gone by and
Yeah.
you're wrapped into it. And I definitely see what you came from there. It's amazing when you're able to just let that stream of consciousness just like get out onto the page.
Yes.
So,
I had been I had been procrastinating for years because I had in 2016 I was going to I'm a very early digital nomad. Do you know, Danielle, what a digital nomad is?
funny enough, I very much do. I spent the last summer kind of taking my 3 different laptops around Europe and
Wow.
Asia. So
Wow. Okay.
you did
Yeah,
the
so you
same
got it
thing, yeah.
for like starting more than 10 years ago. And so I was very early in that and I thought, yeah, this is what I want to write a book about. And I wish I had done that because then
You
it
didn't.
exploded. Well, no, I wish I had written a book about how to become a digital nomad, I meant. So,
But you haven't yet.
no,
That's
I
like
know.
something everybody wants to know about.
No, I know. Yeah, I think there's a lot out there. But anyway, I got another point to people writing. Just do it.
Yeah,
Don't put it
just do it.
off. Just do it because someone else will do it if you don't do it. And you never know what's going to happen. And the industry exploded after. I mean, if I had written it in 2016, it would have already been well known by
Okay.
2020 when COVID hit and millions of people would have used that book. And now many, many, many of those books have been written. So I'm not going to go back and do that, I don't think. But um, yeah, I think that
Yeah, okay. Just keep going with that. You missed your
because of that,
window.
I was like, I'm gonna sit here until I get a book done. I'm gonna write it. And I think it's just like your first time with anything else. The first time, I think, like starting a business, the first time, going up and asking someone out, the first time quitting a job, whatever, it's always like the hardest. And then you get that book out of the way, and you're like, oh wow, I can actually do that. And then you think, once you know you can do it, you can do it again.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's just another piece of advice for all of our listeners to hold on to right now. You missed the window. I mean, I got excited hearing about that idea, like, digital nomad. That sounds so cool. And I mean, honestly, I feel like you definitely have insights that other people don't have on
Thank
paper
you.
yet. But I
Thank
see
you.
what you mean. You missed the window of like the big hype.
Mhm.
So yeah, get out there, just write it. And I mean, you were able to hold yourself accountable. Not a lot of people are that,
Yeah,
lucky to do that.
true.
They're busy, they're only able to write like after they get home at 5 p.m. or
It's
like,
hard.
yeah, you're tired. It's difficult. I mean, that's exactly what we do, like we help you find time in your schedule to make
Nice.
it happen.
Cool.
A lot of people just like they'll voice memo me like ideas for their chapters as they're driving home or like we hop on a call whenever they're
Game
able.
changer.
Like, you just gotta find the time because, like you said, you
Yeah.
can't miss that window.
Yeah, if you're listening to this and you are a business professional or a business owner or someone that makes money from their main thing, it's probably a no-brainer for you to work with another company for your book because, if you try to do everything, then you never do anything well. And it's, stick with the thing that's making you something and then, hire experts for things you don't know anything about. I think that's standard advice from really successful people. And I didn't make that up, but it's something that it's a muscle that you work out and you get better at as you get more and more successful because you can't do everything yourself. And I wrote
Yeah.
my book myself because I had to, because I was stuck in a room for 2 weeks, or I probably would have hired someone to do it and just like send voice notes like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, every situation's different, like
Yeah.
maybe you really do want it to be something you did and like you have your hands on and it
Mhm.
came out of your brain, you physically typed it up, right? So, I mean, like there are ways for you to do that. You can draft it, we can help you like edit it or whatever. I
Nice.
mean, going back to what you said with AI, there's so many tools that can help you outline and research and all that stuff.
Mhm.
Um, so, circling back to that, I know that's actually a pretty hot topic in some of your books is like the revolution of AI and how that's affecting marketing in various industries. I
Mhm.
mean, is that something that, you know, perhaps you think is going to be a big game changer in your industry too?
Oh yeah, it already is.
Mm.
Massive game changer. If you're listening to this and you're not using ChatGPT more than 10 times a day, then you are behind me and you're behind many people. No, it's insane. You have a personal coach, a doctor, an expert in everything in your pocket. It's 100,000 times more powerful than Google because it can converse with you. And so you can't do that with Google. And so it's insane how valuable it is to anyone. Like, I mean, so many use cases, but when you use it for personal and professional life constantly, then you can ask it about recommendations for you. For instance, I can say to AI, like, hey, if I want to write, and I have done this even about writing, hey, I want to write another book, knowing everything you know about me, what am I an expert at? What can I write a book about? And then it gives me these ideas. And I had already thought of the online dating thing, but it thought about it. You can say, okay, I like this idea. Now, if I really want to focus on this and that, like, what would the outline look like? And then, okay, I like this outline, but I don't want to say this, and I want you to pull some more stats in, and like, I want to have a section. And then all of a sudden, a month worth of work of coming up with an outline is done in 30 seconds. And that's, I mean, so many stories. Like, if you have an issue, you tell it the issue, then you go, well, what recommendations do you have? Or, okay, I don't want to spend that. It's just like everything. So from a marketing point of view, any content creation can take minutes instead of hours. Any strategy stuff, you no longer really need to, spend months researching things from multiple sources to put together a strategy. A lot of times people ask ChatGPT instead of Google, and searches are going down on Google a lot because it's just way more interactive and deep. For instance, like, hey, what are the top social media softwares that I should be using to grow my startup? And then it'll tell you, and you're like, okay, which one of these are free to start? And then, okay, boom, there all of a sudden you can just start on those free tools where you would have to go and click on each one and sign up to see how much it would cost. And so it can help in a massive myriad of ways that I think if you're not using it all the time, you're at a massive disadvantage. And I can't say that enough.
Yeah, I mean, I talk about it all the time, how it could be a great tool. Well, first off, before I go on to what I want to say too, I just want to draw back a little bit there. Like, I didn't realize that actually Google searches are going down because of ChatGPT. That's very interesting.
Massive.
Yeah, especially because like ChatGPT, there's no paid advertisements. It's not telling you like the top result based on, whatever fees that company is doing.
Right.
So yeah, it's incredible. But when you're working with AI, it's definitely something to be careful with too, because if you can use it to plan, but like you mentioned before, if you try to write an entire chapter based on it, it's just going to be garbage because it gets repetitive. It's based on data that it gets from the internet. So at the end of the day, that's why you need an editor. And and
then once you write a book, your information will be in ChatGPT and you will get recommended. I get people messaging me, hey, I found out about you from ChatGPT, and like it pulls from the world of resources out there for information. So the more content you create, the more it can recommend you to people. And so what's a bigger piece of content than a book,
100%. So back to the topic of books, you talked about how you have, the idea for a book perhaps in the future about, the dating app world. What else is on the horizon for you before we end the call for today? What can you leave our readers with? Where can they find you? What's next for you?
Yeah, so if you have a business that you need to grow without spending a lot of money, the book is called The Startup Growth Book, startupgrowthbook.com. I am based in San Francisco. I do a couple talks a month around town if you're here. If not, you can find me at andrewstartups.com or as Andrew Startups on any social media. I also have a podcast called the Funded Now What podcast, where I interview founders who've raised at least a couple $1 million. And I'm pretty easy to find online by design. That's what I do for a living.
So it won't be too hard. We'll have links within this podcast for the people to click on,
Awesome.
But they can also just, type in your name. You're very easy to find too, like you mentioned. So
exactly.
To all of our listeners out there, check him out. He's able to help you in so many different ways, especially that book. And I mean, if you have an idea for a book of your own, always reach out to Authors on Mission, schedule a consultation as well. And so, yeah, with that, everybody, and Andrew, thank you so much for being a part of
Thank you,
another
Danielle.
episode of Authors on Mission.
Absolutely.
And to everyone out there, if this conversation sparked your author's journey, remember, your knowledge deserves to be shared. And Andrew's story really shows how you can transform your ideas into a book, into a speaking career, a thriving agency. And he's just one example of someone who's made it to the top. So if you're inspired by him, check it out. And other than that, I'm Danielle Hutchinson, your host and Chief Creative Officer and Authors on Mission. And until next time, keep writing, keep leading, and keep inspiring. Thank you so much, everybody.